The body should not have been there. It drifted slowly toward the Spanish shore, face down, carried by a quiet current that did not belong to any battlefield. No uniform, no visible wounds, no sign of struggle, just a man, alone in the water. Inside his pocket, there was a letter. It would change the course of the war. April 1943, southern coast of Spain, near the town of Huelva. At this point in the Second World War, the Allies are preparing for a massive invasion of southern Europe. The target is Sicily. It is the gateway to Italy and a direct path into Axis territory. But there is a problem. Germany knows an invasion is coming. The only question is where. And if they guess correctly, the entire operation could collapse before it even begins. German forces under Adolf Hitler have reinforced coastal defenses across the Mediterranean. Troops, artillery, and reconnaissance are positioned to respond quickly. The Allies cannot hide an invasion force of this size. But they can try something else. They can lie. Inside a secure office in London, British intelligence officers begin working on a plan that sounds almost impossible. The idea is simple. Convince Germany that the invasion will not happen in Sicily. Convince them it will happen somewhere else. Greece, Sardinia, anywhere but the real target. But for that lie to work, it has to feel real. Not just believable, authentic. The kind of information that would only exist if it were never meant to be seen. That is when the plan takes a darker turn. They need a messenger who cannot speak. A man who cannot be questioned. A man who cannot break under pressure. They need a body. The operation is given a name. Operation Mincemeat. The concept is risky. If the deception fails, the Germans will know the Allies are trying to mislead them. That would only increase suspicion around Sicily. So every detail has to be perfect. The body must look like a real officer. The documents must feel genuine. Even the smallest inconsistency could destroy the illusion. British intelligence turns to a team led by Ewan Montague, a naval officer, and Charles Chumley, an intelligence planner. Together, they begin building a man who never existed. They give him a name, Major William Martin, Royal Marines. They assign him a rank that makes sense for the documents he will carry. Not too high, not too low. Then they begin constructing his life. Inside his pockets, they place personal items. A photograph of a woman, love letters, receipts, a ticket stub. Each object is chosen carefully. Each one tells a story. The goal is to make anyone who finds him believe that he was real, that he lived, that he mattered, and most importantly, that he died carrying something important. The documents themselves are the core of the operation. They are written as private correspondence between senior Allied officers. The tone is casual, almost careless. Exactly what you would expect from messages not meant to be intercepted. They describe an upcoming invasion, but not in Sicily. Instead, they point toward Greece and Sardinia. The language is subtle. There is no dramatic announcement. Just hints, references, details that suggest a larger plan. It is the kind of information that invites interpretation. And that is exactly what they want. If the Germans believe they have uncovered a secret, they will trust it more. Now comes the most difficult part. Finding the body. They need someone who matches the story. The right age, the right condition, and the cause of death must be consistent with drowning. Eventually, they find a man. A homeless individual who had died from poisoning. His identity is kept hidden. But in death, he becomes Major William Martin. The team prepares the body carefully. They dress him in uniform. They attach a briefcase to his wrist. Inside that briefcase are the documents that could mislead an entire army. But timing is critical. The body cannot simply appear anywhere. It has to be discovered in a place where German intelligence has influence. Spain is officially neutral. But in certain regions, German agents operate with quiet support. Huelva is one of those places. If the body washes ashore there, it is likely that the documents will be passed along. Not officially, but inevitably. On April 30th, 1943, a British submarine surfaces off the coast. HMS Seraph. Under the cover of darkness, the crew brings the body to the surface. There is no ceremony, no witnesses beyond a small group of officers. They release Major William Martin into the water. The current begins to carry him toward the shore. Now, everything depends on chance. Will the body be found? Will the documents be recovered? Will the Spanish authorities hand them over? Or will the entire plan disappear into the sea? Hours later, a local fisherman spots something in the water. He pulls the body closer. At first, it looks like a tragic accident. But then he notices the uniform, the briefcase, the chain attached to the wrist. This is not just a dead man. This is someone important. Spanish officials are alerted. The body is taken ashore. And as expected, word begins to spread. Quietly, carefully, German intelligence officers in the region take interest. They do not seize the documents immediately. That would raise suspicion. Instead, they wait. They observe. They rely on their contacts within the Spanish authorities. Behind closed doors, the briefcase is opened. The letters are examined, photographed, copied, then carefully returned. The original documents are placed back exactly as they were. No visible trace of interference. From the outside, everything appears normal. But now, the information is moving. From Spain to Germany. From curiosity to command. Inside Berlin, analysts begin reviewing the material. They compare it with other intelligence. They look for inconsistencies, patterns, anything that might reveal a deception. Because if this is real, it changes everything. If the Allies are planning to strike Greece and Sardinia, then Sicily might be a diversion, a decoy, a trap. German high command faces a decision. Reposition forces, reinforce new locations, shift defenses away from Sicily. But if they are wrong, they could leave a critical point exposed. Time is running out. The Allied invasion is approaching. And now, a dead man is shaping the battlefield. But there is one problem. The British do not know if the Germans believe the lie. They have no confirmation, no signal, no proof that the operation is working. Only silence. And in war, silence can mean anything. The silence does not last forever. In London, British intelligence is waiting for something specific. Not a message, not a confession, just a small shift in German behavior. Because in deception, belief is never announced. It is revealed through action. Days pass. Then something changes. Intercepted German communications begin to show concern about the Eastern Mediterranean. References to Greece increase. Sardinia is mentioned more frequently in strategic discussions. It is subtle at first, but to trained analysts, it is enough. The lie is taking hold. At the highest level of German command, the documents carried by Major William Martin are being treated as genuine. Adolf Hitler himself becomes convinced that the main Allied attack will strike Greece. He orders reinforcements to be sent there. Panzer divisions are repositioned. Defensive resources are redirected. Sardinia is also strengthened. Troops that could have defended Sicily are moved away. Not completely, but enough. And in war, enough can decide everything. The deception has worked. But the operation is not over. Because the real test is still coming. July 1943. The Allies launched their invasion of Sicily. Operation Husky. More than 150,000 Allied troops begin landing on the island. British and American forces move toward the beaches under cover of darkness. Among them are infantry units, airborne divisions, naval support, and air cover coordinated in a complex assault. The scale is enormous. But the resistance is not what it could have been. German forces in Sicily are present. They are capable, but they are not prepared for the full weight of the attack, because they were expecting it somewhere else. The reduced defenses mean that key landing zones are less fortified than anticipated. Coastal batteries are fewer. Reinforcements are slower to arrive. This does not make the invasion easy. There are still battles, still confusion, still losses. But the difference is critical. Allied forces gain a foothold. They push inland. They secure positions that might have been heavily contested if German command had made a different decision. And that decision traces back to a body in the water. The impact becomes clearer in the days that follow. German high command hesitates. Even after the invasion begins, there is uncertainty. Some commanders still believe Sicily is a diversion. They wait for a larger strike elsewhere. That hesitation costs time. And in an invasion, time is everything. Allied troops continue advancing. Airfields are captured. Supply lines are established. The operation builds momentum. Within weeks, Sicily is effectively under Allied control. The island becomes a base for further operations into Italy. And from there, the war in Europe begins to shift. But the story does not end on the battlefield. Back in Spain, the body of Major William Martin is buried with military honors. To the outside world, he is a real officer who died in service. To the Spanish authorities, the case is closed. To Germany, he was a source of valuable intelligence. But to the small group of British planners who created him, he is something else entirely. Proof that deception, when executed with precision, can rival firepower. Every detail mattered. The letters, the photograph, the uniform, even the placement of the body in the current. Nothing was random. And because of that, the illusion held. It is important to understand what could have gone wrong. If the Spanish authorities had refused access to the documents, the Germans might never have seen them. If the documents had been handled carelessly, signs of tampering could have exposed the plan. If German analysts had found inconsistencies, they might have dismissed the entire story. And if Adolf Hitler had chosen to ignore the information, the outcome in Sicily could have been very different. Instead, each step aligned. Not perfectly, but enough to create belief. And belief shaped decisions. From a strategic perspective, Operation Mincemeat is a clear example of intelligence influencing the battlefield before a single shot is fired. It did not win the war on its own, but it removed obstacles. It created opportunity. It reduced resistance at a critical moment. And that is often how wars are decided, not by one event, but by a series of small advantages that build over time. The success of the operation also changed how intelligence agencies approached deception. It showed that information could be weaponized in ways that extended far beyond traditional espionage. A single narrative, if constructed carefully, could move armies, could redirect resources, could alter the expectations of an entire command structure. There is also a human element that cannot be ignored. The man who became Major William Martin never chose this role. His identity was borrowed. His story was written by others. Yet his final journey had a real impact on real lives. Thousands of soldiers who landed in Sicily faced a battlefield shaped in part by his presence. Some survived because defenses were weaker. Some advanced because resistance was delayed. It is a quiet contribution, invisible, but significant. In the end, Operation Mincemeat was not about tricking one officer or intercepting one message. It was about understanding how people think, how they interpret information, how they make decisions under uncertainty. The British planners did not force Germany to act. They guided them. They presented a story that felt true, and then they let human judgment do the rest. That is what made it effective. Not just the documents, but the psychology behind them. Today, Operation Mincemeat is studied as one of the most successful deception operations in military history. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was precise, carefully built, carefully executed, and ultimately, carefully believed. A man who never existed carried a message that was never true. And because of that, an invasion succeeded where it might have failed. In war, victory is often measured in battles and territory. But sometimes, it begins with something much smaller. A current in the water, a sealed letter, and a story that someone chooses to believe.